Earlier this week, Nigeria's external reserves, also called foreign reserves, crossed the $41 billion mark. The Central Bank of Nigeria uses these reserves to back liabilities, influence monetary policy, and of course shape the direction of the economy of the country. Well, according to the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Yemi Cardoso, the Apex Bank remains focused on price stability and rebuilding the confidence of consumers and businesses. So tonight, Babajide Ogunsanwo, who's the founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share the vital facts and insight about Nigeria's external reserves. Thank you very much, Babajide, for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening, Anne.
Good evening. Now, gross external reserves, as I said earlier, is now over $41 billion. But just last week, if you recall, you talked about the rising crude oil production. Are these two events linked, or is it just a coincidence?
Three events more. It's more like three events. Three events are linked. The first event is improved pipeline security because of better security for the pipelines. That is linked to higher crude oil production. And higher crude oil production is linked to the increase in the Central Bank of Nigeria's gross external reserve. So three events linked. Improved pipeline security is linked to improved crude oil production. Increased crude oil production has significantly influenced the $41 billion CBN reserves we have as of today. The reason why $41 billion, Anne, is such a big number is the last time Nigeria had an external reserves of $41 billion takes us back to December 2021. That's almost 4 years ago, the last time we saw this sort of external reserves. So pretty much good news. Let's take a look at the statistics that backs up this good news, especially looking at how those three events are linked. Pipeline security, improved crude oil production, and gross external reserves. The facts we have today currently shows that as of November 2020 was the last time Nigeria had an average daily crude oil exports of over 1 million barrels per day. Now look at what has happened between December 2020 to December 2024. Nigeria's average daily crude oil exports dropped below 1.09 million barrels per day. So we've had that extensive period, 4-year period of crude oil exports sub $1 million. But based on the facts we have from the central bank, they've said that from the beginning of this year, January, average crude oil exports has gone above 1 million barrels per day. So that's significantly good news. So what we've seen is since January, there's been an accumulation of growth in revenue because crude oil exports, we've seen consistency in crude oil exports. Can we still significantly do more? Yes, we can, but the evidence shows that compared to that 4-year period, December 2020 to December 2024, where we were exporting below an average of 1.09 million barrels per day, we are now in excess of 1 million barrels per day. So good news from that perspective. We're also seeing even unassociated benefits, collateral benefits from our crude oil exports. And what do I mean is the African OPEC Chief of Defense Staff, I'm talking about Algeria, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Libya. They've said this week, starting from tomorrow, they're coming into Nigeria to join other African countries to meet with the Chief of Defense Staff to really talk about collaboration. They've said their willingness to collaborate is at the highest. The Chief of Defense Staff has also made a statement today saying when African leaders rise above division, our nations rise above danger. Unity at the top secures peace at the root. So what we're saying in summary is all African Chief of Defense Staff are coming to Nigeria saying that they've seen a lot of progress in pipeline security and they really want to find a way to collaborate more with the chief here and to understand a lot of how things were done to be able to achieve this sort of results that we're seeing. So in all, a lot of benefits based on what has happened within these three events that I've said are linked. Improved pipeline security has led to higher crude oil production. Higher crude oil production has led to higher crude oil exports. Higher crude oil exports is now significantly influencing the CBN's position. So good news.
Well, Babajide, if you say Nigeria's crude oil production volume is rising, what would you say about the situation of the price of oil?
So, like I always do with the good news, there's the bad news. Now, the good news we've seen in volumes, there's bad news in price. And let's take a look at the statistics, and let's focus on the facts, because the facts allows us to clearly see what is going on. And these are some of the things that gives analysts reasons to be worried. So we look at Nigeria's reference crude oil, the Bonny Light, 2022, average price in 2022 per barrel, $104. As of this year, average price has dropped to $73. That's a decline of approximately 30%. Not only is that a decline, we've seen a year-on-year decline. So look at 2023 price, lower than 2022. Look at 2024 price, lower than 2023. So in all, Nigeria's reference crude oil price has been declining, and that's bad news.
But when we talk about all the big numbers, we're calling all the figures and everything, anyone would ask, what is in this for the common man? If you're saying that crude oil production is rising, external reserves, what is the impact on the normal Nigerian citizen on the streets?
And over time, that's what Nigerian leaders have really struggled to do. That's making sure that these big numbers, this growth in external revenue reserves contributes to the improved standard and quality of life. Well, there isn't really evidence to show that that is really happening. Let's take a look at some of the data from previous presidents to clearly see the trends in our chart of the week. 1999, when President Obasanjo was leading, crude oil gross reserves then only $4.9 billion. A lot of growth happened in those 8 years. As of May 2007, gross reserves had moved from $4.9 billion in 1999 to $43 billion. But despite this success, a lot of people and millions still complain that the standard of living in Nigeria still was far below potential. Between 2007, when President Umar Yar'Adua and Jonathan came in, by the time we moved into the 2015 election, crude oil reserves had moved from $43 billion to $28 billion. A lot of people were concerned about how that decline happened. Look at what happened under President Buhari, $28 billion to $34 billion. Despite that growth, there was still poverty, there was still hunger, and there was still a lot of infrastructure problems. When President Tinubu came in, it was $34 billion. The good news is $41 billion. However, the challenge is, yes, we are on a positive trajectory for our gross reserves, which improves our global perception and even the stability of the Naira. But beyond these gross reserves, and which really is about the government, there's a reserves that is even more important than the gross reserves, and that's the citizens' reserves. They are internal reserves. And there are two types of internal reserves. They are savings. How much do Nigerians have in their savings? We're talking about their income. What is the real median income of Nigeria? So yes, while the gross external reserves has shown growth and is important, the government needs to understand that the citizens' reserves are perhaps even more important than the gross reserves, and I've talked about it. Their savings reserves, it really talks about what their future looks like, and their current income, because that talks about their present, the real median income. So while the president looks at the good news of the gross external reserves, two other reports he should be looking out for and he should be asking is, what's the real median income of Nigerians, and how much does the common man have in his savings? That allows us to see a clearer and full picture. Anne.
Okay, I'm sure every Nigerian wants a full reserve because that's what everyone deserves.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Our founder of Leadership by Data, Channels Television's Chief Data Analyst, Babajide Ogunsanwo, thanks for your time on the news at 10.
We'll do this again next week, Anne.
We will.